Welcome back to Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. Chris, how do you put in words what we saw tonight in over 60 minutes of football, as Bill Belichick told us that it took for the Patriots to come out on top 34-31?
Well, how much time you got? You're looking at a ridiculous, unbelievable, amazing. It was a pretty remarkable sequence of plays, especially in the second half where the Patriots turned a 24-0 deficit into a very quick 31-24 lead. The Broncos were able to answer back to make it 31-all, and then after both teams were kind of unable to punch it in after a couple of opportunities in the overtime session, that New England was able to capitalize on a mistake, a special teams mistake made by Denver, and they were able to come away with a win. One of the most remarkable wins I think we've seen this team put together in the last decade plus.
I know you're writing about this on WEEI.com. This is a character win. This is a defining win of a NFL team's season. Certainly, you get down 24-0 to the #1 offense in football, to arguably the MVP in the NFL this year so far, in Peyton Manning, 24-0 at halftime. You're really shooting yourself in the foot. You couldn't do anything right, and you managed to really collect yourself at halftime. How do you think the Patriots went about? You were in the Patriots locker room. What did they tell you about collecting themselves and getting ready for the second half?
One of the things that was really important, and to a man they said this both on and off the record, was that they weren't going to get all 24 points back in one play. So it was a matter of finding one play, building on that, and going forward, and doing what they call stacking success, and able to kind of build on those small plays, not create any negative plays on offense, and able to force some 3 and outs on the defensive side of the ball, and build on those plays. And they were able to do a good enough job in that, in a really impressive third quarter sequence. Over the course of the year, this team has been pretty bad in the third quarter. They were able to come out tonight and able to put some really impressive football on both sides of the ball. Really impressive display on both sides of the ball. Not only in terms of finding some offensive consistency, but also being able to make some really important defensive stops at really important times.
Tom Brady threw 2 touchdown passes in that third quarter that you mentioned. Patriots scored 21 points. It is the biggest comeback win in Patriots history. Really a remarkable night in that regard for historical perspective. We have to touch on this, obviously, the problem, Stephen Ridley. He admitted in the locker room after the game to us that it's sickening. This cannot continue if he's going to be the lead back of the New England Patriots. What does he have to do?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle him going forward, because I think if Brandon Bolden continues to run in the same way that he ran for large portions of the second half, if you're able to get good, consistent performances out of Shane Vereen, I think the coaching staff has a decision to make in terms of who gets the bulk of the carries. There's still going to be a game plan offense, and they're still going to be able to use one of those backs, because all 4 of those backs have really distinct skill sets. And I think if they find a situation where they need a guy who's more of a third down presence, they're going to lean more on Shane Vereen. If they're going to look for a guy who's going to be more inclined to bang it up in there between the 2 tackles, you're going to look at a guy like Ridley. You're going to look at a guy like Blount. He fumbled as well tonight too. But I do think you have a real question about what to do with that ground game going forward, and who's going to be able to get the bulk of the reps from this point on.
Really have to love the way Julian Edelman stepped forward. There was so much talk coming into the game about Danny Amendola for the Patriots, Wes Welker for the Denver Broncos, also Demaryius Thomas, who didn't have that big of a game. Lost in the shuffle was Julian Edelman. He has been huge in the first half of the season for the Patriots, but tonight's game, when the team really needed him, he got open and made some huge catches in really inclement conditions.
You're talking about a guy who, we talked about the team struggling in the third quarter and looking for an offensive spark, and I think Edelman was one of those guys who provided that spark. He had that first touchdown catch, was able to really pull a nice double move on a pair of Denver defenders and get open on a 43-yard reception that I thought also really did a good job giving them a spark there later in the third quarter. So you're looking at a guy who, over the course of the first 10, 11 games of the season, has done very well, has been very dependable. Tom talked about it in the press conference afterward. He's almost overlooked, but he's the guy, who they were able to lean on in a lot of ways over the first 10 or 11 games of the season. I think he's going to play a big role in this offense going forward. We talked about the running game being a game plan situation. I think a day-to-day, really a game plan type of situation with a running game, you're looking at the same type of thing with the passing game here, and I think Edelman's going to be a big part of it going forward.
You're looking at the numbers post-game with Peyton Manning. He did not have big numbers. He did have, I believe it was the 1 touchdown pass, but that was it. I mean, the Patriots defense really did a lockdown job on the Denver Broncos receivers. Really never allowed the big play that I think Bill Belichick was talking about during the week. You have to avoid with the Denver Broncos offense. part of that was game plan because Noshan Marino ran for 222 yards, and the Broncos, because of the win tonight here at Gillette, they were definitely going to say, if we're going to beat the Patriots, we're going to try to actually beat them on the ground. We know they've been susceptible against the run. What do the Patriots take from the way they defended the Broncos, both Peyton Manning and Noshan Marino?
Well, when you're talking about the run defense, I think some of that yardage was situational. I think if you're Denver and you're in a 24-0 situation in the second half, you want to run the ball, especially when you look at the Patriots' struggles this year against the run, and I think that just made sense. I think when you looked at their complete defensive performance, though, there are a lot of things that stand out, a lot of individual performances stand out to me. Brandon Spikes playing on one leg, Kyle Arrington going up against Wes Welker for the majority of the evening,
right,
really looking like he was struggling with injury as well. Alfonso Denner didn't play much late, played a lot early, but didn't play much late. You had a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball for the Patriots who were banged up, but they were able to kind of struggle through it, and they were able to put together a really solid defensive effort. The offense, early on anyway, didn't do them any favors, but I think defensively they did very well. They did as well as could be expected, given the situations, given the opponent.
A lot of people were scratching their heads when Bill Belichick took the win to start overtime, giving Peyton Manning a chance to win it to start overtime. If indeed the Broncos had driven down the field and scored a touchdown, that would have been it. Overtime over, the Broncos would have won. Were you surprised?
I was a little surprised. The only other guy that I could think of, and obviously the overtime rules have changed since then, is Marty Mornhinweg, who infamously did it 11 years ago Sunday night. In the same kind of situation, he took the win as opposed to taking the ball, and they ended up losing the game. Now, again, the rules have changed since then, but it was a curious move on the part of Belichick. I don't know how much of the wind affected the muffed punt, the Tony Carter muff, and the Wes Welker, the play involving Wes Welker at the end of the game. But it's just, in retrospect, it was a curious move. It didn't come back to bite the Patriots, but it was just interesting the way it all played out.
A huge win, needless to say, Chris. The Patriots win it 34-31 on a Stephen Gostkowski 31-yard field goal with a $1:56 left in overtime. It looked like it might be a tie game, the second tie game of the day, but instead, Patriots come out of this smelling like a rose, 8-3, and really all but locked up the AFC East with this win tonight. And now the Broncos are 9-2, and now the Patriots have the possibility of finishing first in the AFC if things fall right.
Which is remarkable, considering everything that's happened to this team in this offseason and the fact that they don't have Vince Wilfork, they don't have Gerard Mayo, they don't have Tommy Kelly. Steve Gregory didn't play tonight at all. When you think about all of that in context, and then you think about the fact that if they run the table the rest of the way, and if Kansas City finds a way to knock off Denver next week, you're possibly looking at the number one seed in the AFC. Again, when you consider everything that's happened to this franchise over the last year plus, it's remarkable to think that they're here at this point with, a week to go before Thanksgiving.
Indeed. Well, have a happy Thanksgiving, Chris. I will try to do as well. And until we meet again, which will be in a couple of weeks, when the Patriots host the Cleveland Browns here at Gillette, he's Christopher Price. I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.